like you said, when you set boundaries, because it's really unusual, particularly like parents or other elders, they can feel slighted by it, right? Or feel like they're the exception. So a couple of years ago, I
Mm-hmm.
instituted a rule for myself, but also for other people, that I was not going to be using screens between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. And that meant I'm not taking any calls between 9 p.m. and 9
Mm-hmm.
a.m. And this was pretty shocking to my family at large. And and I had it in my WhatsApp status. It's still my WhatsApp status. And my dad's like, what was this? What is this 9 o'clock thing? And I'm like, yeah, you just can't. I can't be available all the time. Like I have to have a time that I'm just like I have to wind down. I need to be able to sleep. If there's an emergency, like feel free to contact me another way. But like my phone just has to be off at some point. There has to be some limit, and I really really stuck to it, to the point that one of my cousins said, I'm not sure I have the right number for you. Is it the one that says no calls 9 p.m.? And my dad's like, yeah, that's the one. And if you call her at 9:01, she ain't answering. um, but it's been a couple of years now, and everybody's used to it, and everyone just knows, like, if you need to reach me, you better get it in like 8:45. But it's hard to do, and it's hard to stand up to people who you respect and who you have learned to respect, and who you might feel some responsibility or obligation to. But I don't think that you can really fulfill responsibilities to other people if you're not being responsible to yourself, right? So it's like it's little things that can feel like big things to get you there, I think.
Yeah.
I agree, Alicia. I feel like in particular with my job, I have had to do a lot of that um over the last couple of months with the COVID situation, because we're often in a place where we're made to feel we have to go, 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 despite anything else that's going on. We have to be the ones to pull people together. We have to be the ones to keep supporting people in different ways. And all the time, we are also dealing with the pandemic, and we're also experiencing grief. We're experiencing loss. We're experiencing all kind of different things in our personal lives. And I had to check myself, because it's a really unique situation. I think it really brought me to a point where I had to look at myself and what I was doing, and how I was prepared to move forward, and was I really being fair to myself. And so I did have to find myself in those places where I would cut myself off from people related to my job, um, at certain times of the day or night. I had to decide at some points that I would not be doing, or meeting an obligation that I thought I would have to meet, and choose not to do it, and to find another way around it. Um, Things like that. Another important part of healthcare for me during this period, um, in light of what we were talking about before, in terms of persons just coming to the forefront of speaking up about these issues, I feel like we're in a time now when even the most, um, I don't know, the people who were most kind of resistant to believing in causes like Black Lives Matter, and believing that systemic racism is a problem, they're really really forced to see it. A lot of people, and so you still have those people now who continue to be unhelpful. Is the best, most kind word I can find. Unhelpful about the whole situation, and I've realized that it only drains my energy to engage those persons, in terms, we all in these stupid groups, right, on WhatsApp. And so you have people who will continue to agitate for nonsense, people who will make comments and all these things. And there may be a time um that I would be more willing to engage those persons. But I've had to come to a point, now, where I'm like, you know what? The whole world has been teaching you. The whole world has been teaching you. So I'm not going to lose any I'm not going to drain my emotions or my mental health at this time to take the responsibility of teaching you when you don't want to be taught. Because at this point, it's not ignorance, but it's a matter of the heart. It's a matter of lack of care and concern. I don't know what else to say it is, but I think for those people those people who are still resisting, it's not that, they're not being taught, but they're not being teachable. And a part of my healthcare has been not to, especially those people, family members, things like that. I engage you because you're only there to drain my energy. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that was part of my thing.
Yeah, I think there has to be a line. Like there are people who I know who I kind of have to determine where they are, right? Because there are a lot of people in the middle, and
Mm-hmm.
some of those people are movable, and some of those people are just comfortable being in this middle. And a lot of times it's not really the middle, like they pretending to be in the middle, but they like, right? Um, and I have to make the decision that I'm not going to be exhausted by a conversation with you when there are people who are actually movable,
Mm-hmm.
who I could be talking to, people who are interested in actually hearing what is really going on. And that's, I guess, a part of my ongoing self-care, because it's really tempting to take on all these people and like just be dogged in the pursuit of like getting everybody on the same team, and just like, no, if you just understand this, then you're gonna get it. um, and it's just not real. And sometimes it makes sense to engage to a certain point because so many of these conversations happen on social media. So I might see Kelly post something whack and like comment and be like, yeah, this don't make no sense because XYZ, and then Kelly coming at me. But I know she has a lot of followers, a lot of people paying attention to this conversation, so it might actually be worth it for me to drop a little bit of knowledge, not really get in the back and forth. But what I tend to do when I do get tired of it, or I realize it's not going anywhere, I say, um, so this is the last thing I'm going to say on this. XYZ, ABC. Here are some resources. If you want to talk further, here's my PayPal link, and we could talk about an hourly rate. And like that kind of like lets me, yeah, I do it a lot and it works. But that kind of like lets me leave the conversation, but also have left enough that if anybody was watching it, they have enough to take with them if they really are interested in learning. So it's kind of like, I guess it's a way of dealing with the guilt of leaving people behind. So we find different
That's very
methods.
creative.
10 out of 10 for that technique. Yeah, I think it's also useful to know when you're starting to lose it. Like just to feel it in yourself and be like, I am tired of talking to you. And instead of reach that point where you're just like lashing them, just stop. Just be like, all right, I'm tired. I don't have it for you anymore. And actually, somebody else might be able to teach you. Maybe somebody has the brand of patience that's needed for you, but I don't have it in this moment. And like self-care is also being honest with yourself about where you are. Because, you come in, there's a bat that's, an ancestor bat that's in my room. I don't know who it is. Okay. Yeah, so Duffy's live with me. So yeah, it's also about being realistic with yourself, because I feel like accountability is also a part of the way that I care for myself, right? It's not to be the victim and not blame everybody else for what I'm doing or how I'm acting or whatever. It's to really just be like, Carla, are you at your wit's end? Did you wake up tired this morning? Do you have activisting in you today? How much activisting do you have in you? An hour? Okay, I'll give you a solid hour of me as an activist and I'm done. Because I don't have any more. Rather than be out there tracing people, cussing people, telling people about their mother, and then the next day being like, oh, the Twitters were so hard today. Everyone was so difficult to reach. You woke up tired, sis. You should have stayed offline. You should have stayed offline on that day, right? And like that's the growing up part of self-care, is to actually hold yourself accountable to yourself and your own behaviors and the person that you want to be. And then, hi. Okay.
Is that your bat again?
You see, like I have concern
Yeah.
because the fan is on.
Yeah.
I just don't want nothing. Okay, please excuse me for a moment.
It
I'm
might
going
have
to
a
try
message.
to gracefully turn off the fan. I don't know what's happening.
It might be an ancestor with a message.
I don't know what I said, but I would prefer it.
Carol, hi. Do you want to
Probably a
say hi to
grandparent or
people? Like
somebody.
introduce yourself. So Equality Bahamas has 2 interns this summer. We're really excited. And Carol is one of them, and she is on the call. So
Hey.
just give us a hi. Carol's going to be working on, well, she's already working on a bunch of stuff, desk research, some feminist policy stuff, and
our podcast is in the
Right.
works.
yeah, tell them about the podcast, Carol.
So the other intern, Yashna, and I were kind of working on creating a podcast that kind of discusses different aspects of feminism, just kind of delves into it and sees like what it really means to be a feminist, just because we believe it's become such a vague term, just because of its history, the way people have kind of written about it, what they've used it for, and we just kind of want to explore it and really kind of find out how we feel about feminism and like help our audience kind of maybe find out how they feel about it too.
I think, Carla, I recommended you for one of their topics, actually. Just so you know, they might call you for an interview.
Recommend me. Yay! I'm trying to get my other device to come up.
Okay.
Okay. I have unmuted and I have started the video, but it is not translating over there because my Wi-Fi is being stupid. Are you seeing me on
Yeah.
this second thing?
Hearing you, yeah.
Yeah.
You're seeing and hearing? Okay, perfect.
Does anybody have like a regular self-care practice that you are willing to share? Like something that you do on an ongoing basis to take care of yourself? Like similar to, I mean, it doesn't have to be similar, but like how I turn my phone off for 12 hours.
I actually have gotten into the routine of going on a morning run or an evening run, just some sort of run. And I've it's really given me the chance to kind of like think about what I'm going through, like pandemic wise, or just like what work I have to do. And I keep pushing myself like every few days to run for a longer period of time. And I feel like it's a way of taking care of my body and my mind. And that's been really helpful and really nice.
Yeah, like a 2-in-1.
Yeah. For me, when I'm a bit done with something, I tend to take a nap. I don't know how healthy that is. And it's usually after I've already I've exhausted myself, and then I have to disconnect from everything, and I realize and I understand that I need to find a way to do something before I get to the point where I need to just shut down completely. So that's been for me. Like with Carol, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I felt very, I didn't know what to do. I felt sad, but didn't know what to do. And someone recommended that I, go outside and skip. I had this conversation with Alicia a couple of weeks ago where I wanted to start skipping. Just piggybacking off of what Carol said, and just going outside and getting some fresh air was actually very, very helpful in terms of trying to take care of myself, take care of my mind, and being able to continue to have the energy to move forward and do what I need to do on a day-to-day basis. But consistently, a nap. That's how I take care of myself.
I think during this time I've realized like the power of sunshine more than any other time, because I can very easily spend the whole day in the house. Like I work from home anyway. I can very easily stay at home and just like do work, eat, come back in my room, do work, whatever. But because I've become a plant person, I have to go outside to water my plants. And there are some days that I kind of feel like garbage, and then I go outside and I water the plants and I come back in and I'm like, why do I feel better? Eventually I was like, it's because you went out freaking side, of course. But yeah, like that little bit of sunshine really can make a difference. But about the naps, I mean, you already know, Marielle, I don't get down with naps. I don't understand them. But I think people have found ways to cope or take care of themselves while spending all this time at home. And Carla, I wonder if you have any thoughts on like what to do transitioning back to going to work, because people have to go back to work and like that nap thing isn't gonna work. You can't just go outside and skip and then come back inside sweaty, like like
That's so true.
how do you find new things?
I go back to work next month, so be very helpful.
Yeah. Well, I believe in the power of the nap, but naps are really successful for me. They turn into sleeps. Like, I'm like, I think we can take a nap. And then it's like, no, I'm asleep. And no, it's almost tomorrow. No,
You feel great. You feel so good.
I feel good, but it's like, what am I doing waking up at 11 p.m.? I'm waking up at 11 p.m. This doesn't feel rational. So, to transition back, I suggest that whatever little piece of time you have left, just whatever toots of time you have left, you think about, actually really, really think about what you want your work life to feel like. I think being home from work actually gives you a very good understanding of how crappy your work life probably felt. And maybe don't accept that you have to go back into that crappy work life, but make a little plan for yourself about how you are going to alleviate that. So in the space of a nap, because maybe you can't just go lay down under the table, there are little yoga breaks that you can take. They literally have yoga that you can do at your desk, and it's like a 5 or a 10 minutes. It doesn't look too awkward, so the people who might share office with you are not going to be judging you. And stuff that you can do very quickly to just rejuvenate yourself in the middle of the workday. I suggest starting to transition back to a work schedule that kind of looks similar to the one that you had before from now, so you can move back there gently. If you're not there, some people are still there, some people are not, kind of start to ease your wake up time back to what it would need to be, because before now there was no driving now, so it's like, I'm up, I've rolled over, I'm at work. That's not going to be the same. So start easing yourself up towards that wake up time. If you haven't been moving around a lot and your body has gotten a little bit sluggish, then maybe start to move the body around a little bit. You don't need to go to Shanti. It doesn't need to be extreme. You're not trying to lose 40 pounds in the next week. Just a solid 20 minutes of doing something, and that will actually just start to build your energy level back, because a lot of us, I think, don't recognize that being at work takes a lot of your energy. Like, it takes the energy to heave yourself over there. It takes the energy to deal with the people who are there. The people who are there, I can't say that enough. Many of us actually expend most of our work energy navigating the personalities of people who are at work. And so with the last little time you have before you return to work, perhaps sit down and have a conversation with you about who is unbearable, who you think can fix, and who you just need to not talk to anymore. And also, who are your allies at work? Like, for me, COVID-19 has given us a pause against our will. None of us consented to this pause, but yet here we are. And I think one of the things we can actually do at this moment is to make sure that when we return, the things that we do post-COVID feel more like they're on our terms, because we take on the time that we have done to be very deliberate with ourselves about, this is what I actually want my work life to look like. And these are the changes that I am capable of making to get me there. So is there one person at the office that you hate but you keep talking to anyway? Feel free to not talk to them. Like, the time apart, you've grown apart, and it's fine. Do you find that you have a tendency to sit at your desk, including eating your lunch at your desk, and just don't move? And then you're like, well, my ankle's swollen. Don't do that. Set the alarm on your watch to tell you that you need to get up and walk around for 5 minutes So, like, mentally start to prepare yourself for it. But also, the thing that I encourage people to do is don't go back into work in the same way. If you hated it, understand that you hated it, accept that that was the truth, and now be deliberate about what it is that you need to change. And you almost always know what you need to change, because you know what you complain about at the end of the day. You know that your back hurt, your ankles hurt, you didn't eat something sensible for lunch, you hate having to be with that person, and you don't want to be with them anymore. Also, some of us, as we're looking to go back to work, are painfully aware that we need to start shopping for a job. You actually just need to start shopping for a whole new job, because that job don't work for you.
Either you need to move from that position, that department, that company. Maybe in a post-COVID world, jobs are not plentiful, but start making that move. Like, actually think about that work life. But yeah, 20 minutes of exercise a day, and start waking up on time. Because yeah, you're gonna have to drive. You're gonna have to drive. You cannot just brush your teeth and pick the matter out of your eye and then be like, oh, I'm at work. It's not gonna work anymore. Start easing that.
It's so interesting that you said that because the past couple of weeks, obviously months, I've been getting up, rolling over like 8:30, preparing to sign in for 9 a.m. And the past 2 days, I don't know what has happened, but I've gotten up at 7 a.m. And this morning, I rolled over and I was like, oh, what time is it? It was 7 a.m. I'm like, why the hell am I awake? I was so shocked. I was shook. I was like, what? But I'm glad it's happening naturally, and I'll be setting my alarm to ensure that I get up. So that it's very interesting that you said that. So yeah.
Because we all doing it. Like, waking up earlier than they need to. Like, okay, I need enough space to walk to the bathroom, to brush my teeth, to walk to what is now my desk. 15 minutes tops. I could have breakfast if I have half an hour, right? But you don't want that first day back to be traumatic. And then also, like, think about what you can do to make your re-entry into work as gentle as possible, you know? So is it that you've been home and now you realize that, like, you know, you love plants or whatever? Do you need to carry a plant, a very resilient one, you know, one of those that you cannot kill, a resilient plant in there with you? Like, do you need to carry something in there that gives you joy? A lot of us are home and we're like, oh, I had to return to work. Okay, but don't take it for granted that you have to make that sound about your life. Like, what can you do? You have enough power to make some changes so you don't have to make that sound about your life. Yeah.
That requires some self-reflection and some honesty. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to do. I think a lot of us were just exhausted too. A lot of people were talking about sleep schedules just being completely out of whack, and people saying that it's just like the stress, the grief, the trauma, and like, I don't know, I didn't really completely buy into it. And not kind of in this conversation. I think from Marielle saying that suddenly she's getting up at 7 a.m. again, I'm thinking like maybe you were freaking exhausted and now your body is like finally catching itself after you've had the chance to sort of...
I think that's what it was as well. I didn't realize how tired I was until taking the time. And then during the time that we were on lockdown, I was actually meant to take vacation that I had to then cancel. So that, and as that before, obviously the country went into lockdown around end of March, April, I was like really looking forward to going on this vacation because I felt tired. And then I didn't get that anymore. I had to work through those 2 weeks I was going to take off. So yeah, like going through this has really made me realize how tired I am, and I need to really take more steps to look after myself once this starts up again, so it doesn't get to the point where I have to crash. So yeah, like Alicia said, a lot of self-reflection moving forward, ways to actually sit down and think about what I need to do to make a change.
One of the things that I have started doing is when I try to make my to-do list like from the night before, but I am not pleased unless my to-do list looks like, you know, like 75 things, right? Because if I don't have 75 things to do, what am I doing? I'm not working. I'm not achieving anything, right? And it feels so nice when you can tick it off. But also with a to-do list of 75 things, you're only going to click 10. Like, you are not going to get the other things done. And so what I actually did in that case is I created a situation where I was always feeling like a failure because I could never get through the to-do list. So every day I feel like a failure because there's things on my list that I have to carry forward. And so I had to start getting more like aggressive with myself around what is feasible on a to-do list. And then I've actually made like a forget it list. It's not forget it, it's another word that starts with F, but I'm mindful that we're in an open space, so you know what the word is, right? So So after I make my to-do list, I deliberately go through and I kick off like 3 to 5 things off of the list. No, is it nice? No, because I'm like, no, but I need to do that. That's urgent. It's not urgent. It's neither urgent nor critical, and you don't actually have to do it tomorrow. So feel free to forget about doing it all together, because probably somebody else is better suited to do that. So just ask somebody else to do that, or understand that you can do that next week, and like set a time next week where it's actually a priority. Because I think a lot of us, we wear ourselves out by actually taking on more than is humanly feasible for us. And especially in a workspace where it's understood that you're supposed to do your job and then a bunch of other things that are not officially your job, just to keep qualifying to have your job. I think it's useful for you to start doing that. Like just kick off 1 and 2 things and be like, nope, actually, I don't feel like that's essential for me to do right now. And create a little bit more time, because it's like you will say, I need to treat myself better, I need to treat myself better, but when you go find the time, like you have every minute of your day booked, when you go find the time to treat yourself better. So that sifting through and taking things off of your to-do list will actually allow you to create the space and the time where you can take care of yourself, and it will also give you good training in telling people no, which is very hard but very important. Just no, I can't do it. And so, yes, I know that it feels like an emergency for you. However, it's an emergency for you because you mismanage your time. So I'm not going to let your emergency turn into my crisis. No, I cannot. And that being is very hard to say, but it's useful, and you would be shocked the amount of time it frees up in your day when you can just tell people, no, I am sorry, but I cannot bail you out this time. And like that's something I had to retrain myself around, is I would create crises because I was so last minute, or people would be last minute and then drop their crisis on me, and then I'm like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, 6 months. Why are you only doing this tonight? You should have worked on this last week. I'm busy. Yeah. I don't know if you're at all like that, but I'm a sucker for a sob story, and I always want to help. But yeah, sometimes you can't help.
Yeah. For the list makers, I am pretty big on lists, and I too feel like it's not going to work if the list isn't long enough. So I really wasn't going to stop until I filled this whole thing up with things to do. But one thing that I did discover in the last couple of months that's been working for me really well, instead of having like this long list. I mean, sometimes I still make the long list, but then I break it down. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. So I've pretty much made categories of things that I need to do. So I need to do some Canva designs, I need to do some pitches, site updates, and I just put 1, 2, 3, and decided that once I get to the end of the week and I cross them all off, it's fine. So if I do one of each every day or whatever, if I feel like I'm just doing pitches today, I do that. And just by Friday, I want to X off all the things, and there are 12 things there, which is pretty doable. I found that to work. And the other thing with to-do lists, you know how we use boxes and you just like check it off or exit when you're done? I put a check if I did it. I put an X if I decided that I don't need to do it. Like you were saying, Carl, like sometimes I just look back at something and I'm like, that's not my job. And I X it out. And then if something doesn't feel urgent or I just didn't get to it and it's fine to do it tomorrow, I put an arrow to like point to tomorrow. And it just makes me feel better that I have something in the box than it's sitting there empty. And it's a better visual of like what kind of progress I'm actually making. And then at the end of the week, I can actually look at all those X's and assess how I've been burdening myself with a bunch of nothingness for no reason. So, like, make your own to-do list. You might figure out a different way of doing your list. It's less overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I did, you just spoke to this, Carla. We didn't come back to the balance of self-care and community care. So you want to be taking care of yourself, but you often have other people to take care of. And I know you were saying, Carla, that sometimes we feel like the only way we can pay our parents back is by being successful.
Yeah.
And I think one of the sort of consequences of being Black and not having generational wealth is that we often end up having to take care of the people older than us. So we don't really get to build wealth or even really save because we're really trying to figure out how to help our parents with their mortgage or, you know, whatever it is. Like different people have different situations. So we don't really get to make that forward move. And like, how do you make a decision like that? Like, I can't buy a house because I'm paying my parents' mortgage. I mean, that's not my situation, but you know, that. I mean, that's just one example. There are other smaller things like there are a lot of self-sacrificing people who will have their day planned, and then somebody calls and says, I don't know what I'm going to do with this child because I got called to work, and they're like, I'll pick the child up. And you're like, no, but you had to go to the dentist, you need to do this. And they're like, no, I just got stuck with this child. No, you took the child. So like, how do you balance?
I'm that guy.
You're the wrong person to ask? Great.
I'm the guy. I'm like, I'll drop everything. It's okay. Don't you fret. No, I don't need that tooth. That tooth can rot. It's fine. It's been black for some time. It's like, it's really, really hard. And I think it's like one of the things that's like the result of colonialism and the result of racism and all of that stuff that we don't talk about. Like one of the ways I'm trying to contend with that in my own life, like we raised it around a house, right? Trying to buy a house. And that's like a big thing for a lot of us. It's like, how do I generate enough money to buy a house? I mean, how do you generate enough money to buy a house, period, right? Because these people who build houses and sell them back, like it costs them like X to build the house, but they think you should pay them 75 times X to buy the house, right? So they build the house for 1 and they sell it for 75, and you just over here like, so the reward you should get for qualifying for a bank loan to be able to build this house and sell it back is you should make that type of profit? Like, you really think that's the type of profit you should make? Right? So it's like, it's uncomfortable. One of the things that I am working through at this moment with myself is, what do I envision home ownership to look like? And is there a way for me to rethink that actually makes it more accessible for me to get somewhere to live? So for example, if I have the capacity and I'm willing to say, live somewhere a little more rural, and I am willing to make the decision that I'm going to buy a piece of land and try to knock up the easiest house possible on that piece of land so that I can live somewhere, just somewhere, so I can get out of this rent cycle, does that make it more feasible for me, right? Your parents live in a house and you're right, fine, that house ain't big enough for you to move into. Is that house at a point where you can actually look to sell it and then put that money towards building something that is significantly cheaper on a land space that can accommodate both of you? You know, stuff like that. I think and it can be very hard because sometimes you end up in a family and it's like there's that one kid who's taking responsibility for the parents, and a lot of times it's a girl child because the expectation is that you're supposed to take responsibility for the parents, and then like the health needs start multiplying, and like I don't necessarily have a 1,000% foolproof response for that. I think putting pressure on the other family members to carry their share is one thing, because sometimes we just take for granted that there's always going to be that one kid, and if you end up being that kid, then you just know that you don't get to have a joyful life because the other siblings are off doing whatever they're doing, and you just got to kind of pick up the slack. You don't have to, and it's okay for you to bawl and scream at them and tell them that this is foolishness and they're worthless and they need to carry their weight. Like, it's absolutely okay for you to do that. I think it's also necessary for us to think about, and as Black people, we're always kind of in this decision-making position, like people from the developing world, like not even Black. What is the life that you want, and what is the fastest way for you to get yourself there? And it might mean that you have to give up some of the things that you thought you wanted, but sometimes when you sit with yourself, you don't actually want them, right? Or you want to buy a 5-bedroom house in gated complex because that's what looks nice. 5-bedroom house in gated complex costs X amount of money. Is there another way that you can live that you can get that done? And then I think it's also sometimes about having conversations with your parents, which are hard. It's very difficult to look at somebody who raised you and have a conversation with them about caring for them, because the first thing you feel is whatever is necessary, I should do it without question because this is how I say thanks to them. But you also have a right to a life, and you have a right to a life that feels livable. And sometimes if you bring your parents into the conversation and you can get it past the point where they're guilt tripping you or they just feel ashamed, because sometimes they just feel ashamed that they're even depending on you, then you can pull as a team with them to figure out how they can have a good quality rest of their life and you can have a good quality rest of your life as well. And that's actually what it's looked like for me. In my family, it's having some very difficult conversations with my parents and acknowledging the fact that I'm pulling as a team with them. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, if you're the one who's responsible for your parents, you're pulling as a team with them. Before, it used to be they're the parents and you're the kids, so you just kind of went along with what they did. And what we tend to do is flip that and go, well, I'm the adult child and they're the old person, so I'm just going to take on everything on my own and they're going to go along with it. Hell no, y'all is adults. You're all adults, so everybody can come to the table and figure out how we're going to get this done so that you can have a good life and they can as well. If it means sharing resources, if it means, sometimes they got like some little benefits from the housing trust that they didn't use because they used it one time and then they accrued some more because they're so old. Okay, then go get their benefits. Like, does the family have a whole lot of stuff like furniture that y'all can sell out and liquidate and turn that into some cash? It's really about like community work and pulling as a team with the understanding that they want to have a good life, you want to have a good life, and sometimes the generational trauma is that debt of gratitude and how it drives everything that we do. And one of the things that we actually need to cut is that tradition of acting from a place of I owe you, I owe you, I owe you, and then none of us actually enjoy our lives because they spent their lives giving to us and putting themselves on hold, and now we spend our lives giving to them and putting ourselves on hold, and nobody actually wins.
Ooh, child. Ooh, child. Does anybody have any questions or any comments, anything to contribute at all? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute your mic.
Yeah, I have a thought. So I don't know if y'all follow like West Indian March on Instagram or any of the West Indian pages that post all the memes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes those memes kind of demonstrate that what bonds all of us in, from the different Caribbean countries is this lack of self-care, right? So it's like Caribbean parents don't apologize to you. They just ask you if you're hungry. And so it got me thinking about, well, with this self-care revolution that's going on, what is our identity going to look like once we remove these sort of harmful habits and practices? Like once we get to a place where, our children are more patient, are speaking to people more kindly, like what is that going to look like? Because it's all fun and jokes, right? When we see the memes and stuff, but now like everyone is sort of doing the work to like get rid of that generational trauma and those generational habits. So just something, I don't know, like if y'all have any thoughts on that.
I thought about it. When I saw them, I was like, so when we're not emotionally traumatized, what will be our identity now? And it I really like felt a fear because I was like, then what will we be? But
exactly.
But it's also like, what? So then struggle is our tradition. Like struggle is the tradition that we're passing on generation to generation. And I just have to believe that there's something else. But I do think that like this question is valid and we actually have to start to think about what else we are, because for so long, struggle has been the thing that we have passed down to each other, and how to overcome struggle has been like the narrative that's bonded our family, that in the absence of it and under the crush of American imperialism, we might get lost because we don't actually spend much time passing other things on to each other. So I mean, we do have other aspects of our culture, but we don't really talk about them. And what I would love is if these meme makers would actually start to talk about the other parts, so we could have some other stuff to laugh about other than just how your parents beat you till you can't breathe and then offer you fried chicken.
I think it's interesting too that it's interesting to consider the things that we actually latch onto and call culture, or excuse with culture, because we do the same thing with rape. We do the same thing with like sexual assault, sexual harassment. Like, oh, that's Bahamian culture. Is when you see a gal, you just be like, oi, oi, like that's what you just do. The whole region do that. You know, we excuse things in that way. And I think we really have to start challenging these ideas that we have about culture and the way that we use the word culture. And I think a lot of us joke. I think particularly, I don't know if any other Caribbean country has this issue. Carla, I don't know. But Bahamians often say that there is no Bahamian culture. We don't have a culture. And it's just like a misread on what culture is. And when we do start to figure it out, we either latch on to something like we eat conch, and that's our culture, or we beat children, and that's our culture. You know, and it's like, how do we get deeper? How do we get beyond that? And how do we have conversations about these uncomfortable things, these like legacies that we have that are not different from Nigerians talk about the same thing, about how they have to achieve to make their parents happy. They feel like they have to earn their parents' love. They have to become doctors and lawyers, and you know, if you become a writer or something, your parents are like, told her to be a lawyer, you know? I mean, it's not just us. African Americans have the same thing going on. So what is the commonality here? We know what it is, right? We know what it is. Even if we can't articulate it, we know that we're talking about consequences of slavery and colonization and trying to prove our humanity and our value in a racist society. But how do we get past that? How do we take it a step further? And I think it's an important question that you asked, Lauren.
Yeah. I think like some of it does come back down to how, like, and I say it, but it's a real thing that our like struggle becomes the tradition that we pass from generation to generation. And I think I can see it when you have like a parent who starts out in one social class and then they work and they move up, and then their kid is born in the higher social class. And there's a way that parent actually doesn't know how to relate to their kid. And there's a way that actually some of the struggles that they would have had to go through, they want to pass them on to the kid because they think, oh, it's going to grow you and it's going to refine you. But also it's just that you don't understand that you have anything else to give them. So now that your kid is born with wealth and they're born with access and they're born with resources, what do you have to offer? Do you understand that you are something other than the struggle that you come through? And I think that there's like another conversation we need to have about how there is a feeling like there's beef that happens between generations that's actually founded on jealousy when the generation after yours has it easier than you do. They don't have to struggle in the same way you do. And it actually brings up ill feelings for people because they're like, well, I have to go through all of this and you don't. And I really feel some type of way about it. But actually where it goes is, I don't think you're being Jamaican. Your generation has it so easy enough. I don't think you're being Jamaican. And it might be the same thing that's happening with y'all. When they just have it so easy, everything that they have, iPad, when they have how many phones, when they have all of these cartoons on TV, when they can buy things easily, where were you when we were going through and all of that type of stuff? And it's actually, we don't know ourselves outside of that. We know ourselves as formerly enslaved people who have overcome slavery. We know ourselves as people who are resilient and strong. But the other things about us, we don't spend any time investing in telling those stories, and we don't actually understand the value of them. So there's a way that when each generation has it easier, we don't feel we can relate to them because we don't think we have anything that resonates inside of that quote unquote easy life. And it's like it's a necessary conversation to have around who are you and what do you offer to the world and what can you share with the next generation that is not premised on struggle, and who are we? Because when we come to the discussion about what it means to be Jamaican, it comes down to dance hall. You grow up in a shack, dumpling and butter. You ate dumpling with butter, right? If you didn't eat dumpling and butter, you is not Jamaican because you did not struggle enough to be Jamaican, right? So middle class Jamaicans, barely Jamaican. Uptown Jamaicans, not Jamaican. The true Jamaican comes from the ghetto and they have known struggle every day of their lives, and that is the only reality, right? And it's like, well, how do we honor the fact that, you know, many Jamaicans come from the ghetto, and Jamaica's ghetto culture actually informs a lot of what we think of as Jamaican culture, but also to realize that the culture that comes from there is not only struggle. There is also creativity, and there's also art, and there's also, you know, all of that other stuff. Yeah. But I think as formerly enslaved people and people who have come through the colonial project, what we understand is we are oppressed people, and what we are good at is struggling and suffering and overcoming. But the overcoming requires that you struggle first. So if we take that away, we don't know who we are.
Ooh. I don't even know what to do with that in this moment, but yeah, like we have to figure out how we're going to define ourselves outside of our struggle.
Yeah. And like on an individual level, self-care is also just refusing to struggle. It's actually going in the direction of something that feels better for you. Like some of us, we'll get the opportunity, 2 jobs. One of the jobs that's like something you're really good at. It's really easy. It's a great time. Another job over here is going to require work, toil, struggle, and quote unquote learning. Which job you think we're going to take? The struggle job. Because the job that easy, we're like, oh, it come too easy, and anything come too easy, not good, and you shouldn't trust it, and you're not going to grow. Why do you feel all of your growth got to come through struggle? Why do you feel this? You know?
Yeah.
And so it's also like in your own life, just seeing opportunities to struggle and not taking them, seeing opportunities to suffer and not taking them, seeing something that's going to come to you easy, it's going to make sense, it's going to make you happy, and be like, you know what, I can be a person from the developing world, I can be a Caribbean person and not suffer, and just go in that direction.
Just to figure out how. How to justify that for ourselves. I missed a question earlier on Facebook from Fran. This was when we were talking about the issue of not having generational wealth and not being able to build wealth. Even I don't really believe in wealth, but anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But the question is, what about equity and assets in a situation where you are helping with an asset they own?
What do you mean though? What's the question like?
I think the question is, we were talking about kind of putting ourselves on the side to take care of parents' bills, like save the parents' house and that kind of thing. So I think she's asking, what about having equity in those assets?
If they have, like, if a parent has a business or something, and it's like, do I invest in trying to help that business grow, because that has value. It's not something that you're just, I guess, depleting yourself on. It's contributing to something that could be something more. What do you do in that instance?
Yeah. The money conversation is difficult to have in family situations, and it's difficult to have in family situations where your family has sacrificed a lot in order to get you to where you are. And so there's a way that you can again feel the debt of gratitude. And so anything that you invest, there should be no ask from you and no expectation, because you're actually repaying. But that's not getting us anywhere, right? And so, if it is that there is a home situation and you're putting money towards the home and all of that type of stuff, I feel like we have to start to look at what makes sense if we want to change things for our family? What makes sense? Does it make sense for me to be putting all of my money into your house, but it still be considered your house, and I must still go find a house for myself with no money? Or is it okay for me to come to the table with you and say, okay, actually, what I would like is for my name to be on this title. What I would like is to have part ownership of this house. And what I would like is for us to make a decision about how we are going to use this asset that we have to move us all forward. But what that first means is that we have to stop the repaying. You know that? Like, we have to stop the repaying. Oh, bye, Kelly. It was good to see you too, and thank you.
Great. Thanks. Bye. Take care. All right.
Bye, Kelly.
Bye.
Yeah, it's like the money conversation is hard to have with family because there's a way that we feel like everything that we do, the debt mentality towards our parents, we have to break it. We have to break it, because if you always feel like you're repaying them for raising you, you will never be able to have any type of conversation with them beyond, oh, thank you so much for raising me, and P.S., thank you for beating me because I turned out better because you beat me, right? We have to move past that. And I'm saying you have to, and none of that is me implying that it is easy. You are flying in the face of Caribbean reason to do it. But at this juncture, having watched our families struggle for generations, we must recognize the things that cause us to struggle. And this thing where parents part their lives because they have kids, and kids part their lives because they have parents, have just led to generation after generation of people who are unfulfilled and actually resentful to each other. And not only resentful to each other, but have deeper expectations than they should have. So parents feel that they get to tell their kids how to live their life, who they should date, what they should become, because I did all of this for you. And you feel that you need them to sign off because they did all of this for you. How that makes sense? Who is happy? Who is happy? Nobody, right? So if instead of keeping the boat unrocked in your family, you decide that the thing you actually want is for the people in your family to be whole and fulfilled, then it's a completely different conversation you need to have that has never been had before. And that's the only way you can shift something that has gone on for generations, is to do something that's never been done in any of those generations. And unofficially, many Caribbean children are their parents' partners. You are your parents' partner, right? You are their financial partner. Some of you are their emotional partner. You is their partners. So why is it that we hide it? No, we don't want to be anybody's person on the side, and we're not going to be our parents' person on the side. If I'm your partner, then name me for what I am, and let's talk. Let us talk, because we're not hiding this relationship no more. Right? And it feels weird, and it's like, oh my God, you used to breastfeed me, and like, you put me through school. Did you ask to be born? Did you ask to be born? Were you like, knock, 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 I want to be born? No. So then why is it that you need to repay people endlessly for raising you after bringing you here?
I think this is something that's going to come up,
right? Listen, I have so much thought.
Listen, girl. Oh my God, you just got my whole life in like 2 minutes.
I think this is something that's going to come up a lot, right? Because honestly, a lot of people have children as an investment. Like, legit feel like having a child is going to make sure that they're taken care of in their old age. It's very strange. I don't know how you decided that you're going to bring someone into the world and then determine what they're going to do and what they're going to do for you. Like, that a child is an investment for a lot of people.
Yep. Yeah.
And one of the things that Carla is, we're going to talk about this later about my choice not to have children. But if it ever comes up, I mean, my family doesn't really bother. They don't really care if I get married, have children, whatever. But if it does come up with just like random people, you're not going to have children? Well, who's going to take care of you? And I'm like, I don't know. But it wouldn't be the job of children. I don't think it's going to be. I'll figure that out.
But that's what happens when people don't have a social safety net, right? Like, when you live in a country that has no social safety net, the kid becomes the safety net. Like, they're gonna stick around longer than a pension.
and that is so true, because let me tell you, I live in Toronto, and
a lot of the people who have been dying, unfortunately, due to COVID-19 are the elderly folks in the long-term care homes. And the reason why there are so many long-term care homes is because Canada has a social safety net, right? And the government is able to provide a quality of life that ensures a long life. So this is the issue, right? It's like Canada has an aging population. People are living these long, wonderful lives, and their children don't have to take care of them.
Yeah. And it's like when you can get to a point where it's your choice as to how your family moves forward, it's a different thing. And what it creates in the child is a space where they can start to define their own life. But it's like a part of the colonial project was actually making us into workers and separating us from ourselves and separating from any idea of ourselves as full humans. We understand ourselves as the worker. And so even your parent understands you as a next generation worker who is going to do. But then also, when you're in survival mode, there is no space for your dreams. So instead of working on your dreams, you have a kid, and then you try to live out your dreams through the kid. So that's it. They never had the space to do the things they wanted to do because the economic and social conditions were against them. So you push out this kid, you work to try to put them in a place where they have more opportunities, but your dreams are still happening. Like what happens to a dream deferred? Like it's a raisin in the sun. So the dream is just there, and now the kid is like, well, you gonna live this out because look at all the hard work I did for you. Because most of them had to survive stuff that no human should be actually survive. And it's like this gonna have to come up at the dinner table. Like we're just gonna have to boil the banana and boil the dumpling and sit down and talk this out because it's not working.
I agree. I think I agree. I think it has to be a conversation on both ends. It has to be an actualization on both ends. And unfortunately for some of us, it won't be solved within between us and our parents. It might be solved between us and our children. So we have to come to a point where we try not to repeat our parents' mistakes. I'm lucky enough in that, going back to what Alicia said, I found it so funny because literally my whole life, this recording, oh Lord, literally my whole life, my daddy had told me I'm an investment. But I have to say, I give him credit where credit is due because we have property as businesses, and he always gets me involved. Not to say you doing this because I raised you. It's like you're doing this because this will one day be yours. So you need to put an investment in this because this is what you will have when I am gone. This is yours very often. This is yours. Make sure you look after it. Make sure you take care of it because this is yours. And this is what he has gotten from his parents. And that relationship is a bit different. But in terms of me and him, he is saying that he's instilled in me and taught in me that, look, this is what I have. You need to put into it because this is what I will be giving you when I go. I want to make sure that you are in a better place than when I was. And it isn't, like I said, very lucky that it isn't a guilt type of thing. But I do understand, we were talking earlier about like what do you do when it's actually when there are things that that involve that is actual that would probably benefit. And sometimes I don't feel like writing up tenant agreements. I don't feel like having, but I have to know within myself, hey, this is going to benefit me. So I can't be selfish in that way because this isn't for him. It isn't for someone else. It's for me and my family. So I think it's a balancing act. And again, both parties have to be willing and understanding and respectful to each other in this exchange. So that's my 2 cents.
No, I mean, you said it, right? And then, like, I think you really highlighted something, which is any decision that you make, you have to see where it fits into your life, right? So when you're doing all of that stuff, it fits into your life. And I think a lot of us, well, I don't know if a lot, but some of us, we haven't actually stopped to think about that. Like, where do my elderly parents fit into my life? Where do they fit? Do I want to keep them in the same space with me? Don't I want to keep them in the same space with me? Do I want them to be with me sometime, but not all the time? You know, all of those types of things. And I mean, age happens. You know what I'm saying? It's happened. So it's like it's one of the things that we have to contend with as adult children. But it's really about releasing the idea of what you must do, or actually you will never be able to truly release it. Like, let's not lie, you'll never be able to just let go of what you must do, right? But like, try to let go the stranglehold on it just a little bit, let it breathe, and then spend some time with, well, what do I want to do? You know, what do I actually want to do? How can I see this thing working out? But yeah, like, we gotta do that. What? How do I tell me that? Yeah. So I feel like it's useful, and yeah, sometimes it's not going to get settled in this generation, and sometimes they won't be able to turn up to the conversation. Like me and my mother at this point, I'm like, okay, this just feel like a marriage. It's like kind of like a marriage. You know what? It's like, you know, they say when like you and your partner, like y'all fight, and then you have to fix it up and go back and get to the root of the issue. Like that's me and my mother at this point in time. Like we have a disagreement, everybody goes their ways, and then we come back and we're like, would you like to continue in this relationship? Yes. Or shall we divorce? No divorce yet. Okay, keep working at it. And you know, it's great training, but it's not easy. It's especially not easy.
Yeah. All right, I did a quick poll there. 75% of people say flow for a few more minutes. So let's just look at like the next 5-10 minutes instead of like having to rush to close up. Are there any other questions or comments or things that came to mind during this conversation? I mean, we've been kind of all over the place. Like we were on self-care, and then we kind of moved, and then we came back, and then we like went somewhere else, and we came back, because it's like there's so many things that are wrapped up in how we take care of ourselves or fail to take care of ourselves.
There was something, it doesn't, not necessarily self-care, but in terms of when we're talking about, you know, defining what is a Bahamian, what is a Jamaican, what is a Caribbean person. And it kind of made me think, like, why do we have to put labels on what we are? I am Marielle. That is who I am. I am from the Bahamas. What do I love about my country? And that is what I think of as culture. Not so much because me and my cousins used to get lined up down the hall and together, you know, we do something by. No, I mean, it's a part of that of the experience, but that's not necessarily what I think of when I think I am a Bahamian. I think of my grandmother's cooking. I think of having access to the beach so frequently. I think of jumping new. I think of the art. So it's like, why do we have to say you are this or you are that because of struggle? So that was my only thought in that. And why do we have to define what it is? I mean, I think moving forward, people will be thinking more of like on a globalization level. Like, I'm a global citizen. I come from this place, but I've also lived here. I've lived there. I lived there. What does that mean? You know, what does that mean for me? If I've lived multiple places, I have connections and friends and experiences from multiple places. Why do I have to subject myself to just one? And again, that's coming from a point of privilege as well. But you know, it's just like, why we gotta label it in that way. So.
Yeah. I think my fear is American cultural imperialism. That's my fear. And that's the thing that actually motivates me to even have a conversation about what it means to be a person from any country. With the understanding
Tell us what that is
we'll
first,
never
Carla. Tell us what that is.
Oh, so it's just, you know, the way that the American culture and an American way of being is dominant and is being exported as the right way to be, or the better way to be, which informs a lot of we. Yeah, it's the cool way to be. So everybody wants to be American, effectively, right? Think American, dress American, talk American, eat American, be American, the American mindset. And it worries me because we lose diversity, you know, we will lose variety, we will lose the things that actually, for me, bring sweetness and interest to the world. But also, American cultural imperialism is tied to capitalism. And so we will lose anything that is not capitalism. And American cultural imperialism is not healthy. It is not healthy for people. And that is the thing. So I feel like when I get into a conversation about what it means to be Jamaican and why it's so important not for us to define, but for us to honor a Jamaican experience that is different from an American experience, is because I'm aware of how power functions and how it has functioned historically. And that if people don't hold something, some type of framing around themselves, they will be collapsed into the system and eaten alive. And then they will not exist. And after a time, we won't have a space to speak from that is not that. And we already know that that doesn't work. So that's it for me, like my reason. But like I understand that we will never be able to capture what it means to be a Bahamian or what it means to be a Jamaican. But for me, it's like, I don't need you to give me a room. I just need like a frame around something, and
That's
then we work out in the
understandable.
middle.
Making sure that it's remembered and not forgotten. I completely agree with that in that sense. But like I said, like we were talking about the struggle and that, but in terms of honoring what it is and trying to find ways to, I guess, remember it, or like you said, to honor it is very important. So definitely, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I mean, I also definitely want us to separate our identity from struggle, or we won't be able to separate our identity from struggle, but I would like us to be able to hold a focus on the other things that struggle has brought to us, and then to do that healing work, and then now actually begin to self-define in light with who we are versus who we have been forced to be.
I have a comment from Fran from a few minutes ago again. So she said, it is true that children are seen as investments, and the conversation of fulfilling lives needs to be had. And she also said she agrees, I think this was your point, Carla, that we only see ourselves as workers, but also we want our kids to be resilient because we think that's the only way they'll survive successfully. We don't understand life without struggle.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of us will never experience a life without struggle. Like, we just won't, not in our lifetime, you know, things are kind of set for our lifetime. And we focus on resilience. Sometimes I feel, actually, I wish that we would focus more on resilience and less on hardening, because sometimes I feel that what we do is we focus on hardening our children, not to make them resilient, which is to understand that something will happen and you can bounce back. But how can you be the type of person who is so hard and so tough that nothing ever changes you? And then, you know, they're at odds with vulnerability, and they're at odds with emotions, and we see emotions as weakness and all of that type of stuff. And it's not healthy. Like, if you look at the mental health statistics around her, we're struggling, you know? But I think after enough generations of having to survive, it's very difficult for you to conceive of anything else, especially if you live in a political and political and economic environment where you still have to survive. You still can't get the basics done. Like, a lot of us will never have that experience that some people from developed countries have, where your entire family is able to live in the same place and make lives that feel fulfilling for them. We're all across the diaspora because you have to leave, you know. And it's like, how does even that affect your feeling of being connected and belonging to somewhere and being rooted and grounded when you are constantly being uprooted, and the people that you love are constantly being uprooted? And what does that actually like feel like for you? Most of us never even stop to think about that. Like, when you look at people from some countries moving house, is one big production they make when they are moving on, big drama. We just pack up the something them and move, because what? Oh, we've been moving and we will move. So by making a big deal, but that constant uprooting of the self, it has like psychic implications. And there's so much that we treat as a matter of course, because we have to do it so often, but it actually impacts us deeply, but we just don't have the tools or the words to describe it, because we've never been told that something like that is supposed to affect people like us.
Yeah. Well, we're at like 7:15 now, so we do have to wrap up. Clearly we need to have more conversations about these things, you know, about self-care, about community care, about parent-child relationships. I think that that's a huge thing that needs its own whole thing. Like, I don't even know if that's a 2-hour. That's like a retreat that needs to happen. But before we go, Carla, if you could give us like, I don't know, 3 highlights or reminders or tips or something, and then if anyone wants to share kind of takeaways or any commitments that you've made that you just want to say out loud so that somebody heard it and you feel more like, I gotta do it now because I said it to the general public, then we'll have space for that.
Yeah. Okay. So the 3 reminders, I would say, I'm writing them down because my brain is asleep. Okay. My 3 reminders for people: start where you are. Like, don't look at other people's self-care practice and feel like you have to do that. Deepak Chopra meditates for 2 hours every morning and then does an hour of yoga. And I'm like, wow, this is fabulous. And I tried it, child. 10 minutes into meditation, my brain was like, and that's what you have? That's the end of that for you? Big up you. Go and bathe now and start your day. You know? So like, start where you are and meet yourself where you are. Like, what can you manage right now? Go with that. And your practice will build out around you. And that's a beautiful thing about your self-care practice. It is all about you and it's supposed to build out around you. Meet yourself with radical compassion instead of asking yourself, why am I like this? What's wrong with me? Okay, what am I feeling and what's causing me to feel this way, and how can I treat myself the way I would a very small child who is experiencing this thing that I'm going through. So instead of being rough with yourself, move towards yourself with an intention to comfort yourself first, nurture yourself, and then take everything else after that. And lean into what is uncomfortable. When something comes up and it feels away, instead of batting it away, even if you can't deal with it at that moment, make an appointment to go back and sit with yourself and just spend a little time with it. It might lead you to understand that you need the support of a therapist or a friend to go towards that. But the parts of yourself that need care are trying to tell you that they need care, but a lot of time you push them off as inconveniences because I have this work that I need to do and I can't take that on right now. But this is you. Like, the thing that's trying to talk to you is you, and you deserve your own attention. So lean into what is uncomfortable for you and give yourself your own attention, because if anybody in life deserves that, it's you.
Thank you. For the people who are watching on Facebook, if you wanted to make some commitment to yourself and say it out loud, feel free to type it and I can read it here if you want. For the people who are on the Zoom, to give you a couple extra seconds to think about what you want to say, I'll read Fran's comments. She says, as far as self-care, the challenge is finding that balance of how much time I want for myself as compared to how much I want to spend with my loved ones. It's a difficult balance because sometimes it's hard to make time for loved ones and you wish you did things differently when they're gone. So you yield to pressures because you just don't know. I mean, that's a tough one, and I think self-care isn't always time alone. Sometimes self-care is with loved ones, but it's still it's hard to balance those things. So I definitely hear you on that one, Fran. Anyone want to share their thing? No pressure. If nobody wants to, it's fine.
I think my one thing would be, like we said earlier, is to take a nap when you need to take your nap, and make sure you take the nap before you get to a point where you have to collapse.
Yeah.
Woo! Do you follow the Nap Ministry on Instagram?
I do.
No, I don't. I don't
even believe in naps, but I follow them.
She takes naps and she's following. There is a whole nap movement. Yeah,
Really?
No, naps are revolutionary now.
Yeah.
I always feel so bad. It's like, it feels lazy.
I have a friend from
need
university. She planned her class schedule around like her nap time. So like from 1 to 3 or something, she wouldn't take any classes. And I thought that was intense. I was like, what? But she was really serious about it, and she still is. Like her work day, everything. She like tells her coworkers, look, between these hours I got a nap.
I respect that.
Feels great.
That.
I aim for that. That feels
right? I follow them.
The Nap Ministry, they're great. They're doing great work for the community.
Yeah. Is Fee still with us?
Still there.
Did you want to toss anything in here? A one thing or a comment or anything? We haven't heard from you for a while.
I just kind of listening. I guess my one thing in terms of self-care that I could probably change now is learning to let people know when they're doing something that's like bothering me. I tend to do that in my house. It's like somebody will say something to me and it just ruins my whole day. This happened last week and I was angry for like 2.5 days. And it's like, if you had just said something, you wouldn't have had to take this on by yourself. You know, you wouldn't have had to hold this stress and this upset. So I just need to learn how to let people know, you know, hey, it's not okay. And if I don't say this to you, it's going to bother me more than this bothers you. So probably just got to start. I'm learning how to say it nicely. I hate being mean to people. So that's usually what stops me from saying anything. Because at that point, I'm like, I'm ready to cuss. But if I could get a nice in between, I think that'll be a good step for my, you know, taking care of my own self.
That's a good one.
Just really quickly, I wanted to share the idea of like leaning into something in self-care. Just kind of seems like, I feel like usually when I'm thinking about self-care, I'm thinking about doing something that is very low effort, that's very much something that isn't going to make me uncomfortable, and just kind of thinking about doing the opposite. It just makes sense, and it's crazy how I hadn't thought about that before, and how instead of seeing self-care as something that I should come easily to me, I should put more effort and put more work into taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You deserve it. You really do. Thanks for saying it.
Is that all? All our sharing? Awesome. Well, Carla, you know. Thank you so much for doing this and for being in conversation with us and going 23 minutes overtime with us. But every time you come, you bring everything, all the realness and gentle challenges I think that we really need to push ourselves to be better to ourselves. So really, really appreciate that. And not just what you do with us in this space, but all that you do, all the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter. Like, definitely I see you and I appreciate you, and I hope that other people will go and look you up. It's at MooreTalkJa. That's Moore, like the last name, Moore TalkJa. You can find her on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, with little motivational talks that are like a minute and just great for your day. Just so good. I can't say enough good things about Carla. Thank you to Carol, our intern, for being here. This is her first Women's Wednesdays. Woohoo! And hopefully she will be back for more. I will get all of her critiques later. Shout out to Marielle, our volunteer, who's here too. Thank you for everything you do. And I saw new faces, and I don't know if it's because it's Zoom and you don't have to like see us face to face. You can have your snacks, or because you're in different places, but I'm really happy that you joined us. Thank you to everybody who's also on the Facebook Live. And I really am sorry that we couldn't be physically together this month, but a little change of pace is nice, and it's great to see different people, so that's kind of cool. We will be back July, usually the first Wednesday of the month, and I think it's July 1st. Let me look at a calendar. Yes, July 1st. Our plan is to talk about race and racism. So prepare yourself for that one. And in August, we plan to talk about financial management. So mark your calendars. These are really important conversations. We really want more people to be a part of them, to bring different perspectives. And there's a lot of learning that needs to happen individually and collectively. So help us to do that, and do it in a way that is very accessible to a wide audience and that centers women always, because that is what we do. If you don't already, I don't know how you found us without this, but definitely follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Everywhere we're Equality Bahamas, Equality 242. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Happy transitioning as the world changes yet again and work schedules and locations and all that change. Good luck with that, and be sure to do whatever is in your power to take care of yourself. Bye.
Bye.